The rain came down in sheets that November afternoon, turning the cobblestones of our Prague neighborhood into mirrors reflecting the gray sky. I stood at the kitchen window of our third-floor apartment, watching water stream down the glass, when Teresa came running from her mother's bedroom, clutching a folded piece of paper like it might burn her fingers. "Papa," she whispered, though we were alone. At 14, my daughter had inherited her mother's dark eyes and my nervous energy. "Papa, I found this." I should have told her to put it back, should have respected Elena's privacy. But something in Teresa's face, fear, confusion, vindication, made me take the note. The handwriting was unmistakably my wife's, elegant and controlled as everything about her. But the words were addressed to someone named Marek. And they spoke of love, of patience, of plans for a future that apparently didn't include me or our daughter. "She told me I was imagining things," Teresa said, her voice cracking. "When I said she seemed different, when I said she was always on her phone. She made me feel crazy, Papa." I had felt crazy too. For months, Alina had insisted everything was fine. Better than fine. When I questioned the late nights at her law firm, she'd accused me of being paranoid, suffocating her with jealousy born of my own insecurities. She'd turned it around so skillfully that I'd started seeing a therapist, convinced the problem was my inability to trust after my father's abandonment 30 years ago. "We need to be smart about this," I told Teresa, folding the note carefully. My hands were steady, but something cold had settled in my chest, spreading through my veins like winter frost. Elena came home that evening with her usual mask of exhausted professionalism, kissing my cheek, asking about dinner. She had always been good at compartmentalizing. It's what made her such a formidable attorney. She defended corporations against fraud claims, and watching her at the dinner table, I realized she'd been conducting her own defense for months, gaslighting me into being the accused instead of the victim. "How was your day?" I asked, passing her the svikova I'd spent hours preparing, her favorite dish. "Exhausting. The Novotny case is consuming everything." She smiled at Teresa. "How was school, Lasko?" Our daughter pushed food around her plate, saying nothing. Elena didn't notice, or pretended not to. She talked about her work, about a conference in Vienna next month, about how her parents wanted us to visit their house in the Sumava Mountains over Christmas. I listened to her weave her fiction, and I began to plan. Over the following weeks, I became a student of my wife's deceptions. I didn't confront her. Instead, I watched. I learned that Marek was a colleague, 10 years younger, ambitious, and unmarried. I discovered that the Vienna conference was real, but she'd booked an extra 3 days that she hadn't mentioned. I found receipts for hotels in Brno, restaurants in Český Krumlov, places we'd never been together. But more than evidence, I needed leverage. Elena's career was built on her reputation. The brilliant lawyer from a working-class family who'd clawed her way to partnership at one of Prague's most prestigious firms. She gave speeches about integrity and justice. She'd won cases by destroying witnesses' credibility, by finding the smallest inconsistencies and exploiting them until the entire testimony collapsed. I knew her methods because I'd watched her practice them on me. Through a former colleague who worked in IT, I accessed her emails. Czech privacy laws are strict, but desperation makes criminals of honest men. What I found was worse than infidelity. Elena and Marek had been working together to manipulate case assignments, ensuring they worked opposite schedules so that their absence from home wouldn't overlap. They discussed my weaknesses, my therapy sessions, how easy it was to make me doubt my own perceptions. They'd laughed about it. But I also found something else. Evidence that Alina had buried documents in the Novotny case. Corporate pollution records that proved her client had knowingly contaminated a river that supplied drinking water to 3 villages. People had gotten sick. Children had developed cancers. And Alina had helped hide the truth. The revenge I'd initially imagined, exposing the affair, leaving her, taking Teresa, suddenly seemed insufficient. December arrived with snow that blanketed Prague in white silence. Teresa had grown quiet, waiting to see what I would do. She trusted me, and that trust was a weight I carried like stones in my pockets. "Are you going to tell her, you know?" she asked one evening while Alina worked late, or claimed to. "No," I said. "I'm going to do something better." I spent Christmas at her parents' mountain house, playing the perfect husband while Alina played the devoted wife. Her father, a retired coal miner with hands like tree roots, told stories about the old communist days. Her mother pressed food on us with relentless love. They had no idea their daughter was dismantling 2 decades of marriage with the same ruthless efficiency she brought to destroying opponents in court. On New Year's Eve, while Elena slept off too much sect, I copied everything from her laptop onto an encrypted drive. Every email, every document, every lie packaged and preserved. The first week of January, I contacted the Czech Bar Association anonymously, providing them with evidence of Alina's misconduct in the Novotny case. I also contacted the lead attorney for the plaintiffs, the villages seeking compensation for the poisoning that had devastated their community. Then I contacted Marek's wife. Yes, his wife, whom Alina had conveniently failed to mention in her letters about their great love affair. I sent her copies of their correspondence, professionally and without commentary. Finally, I filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, and I requested full custody of Teresa based on documentation of Alina's extended absences and emotional unavailability. I included Teresa's own written statement about how her mother had gaslit her, made her doubt her own perceptions, refused to acknowledge her concerns. The pieces fell like dominoes. The Bar Association launched an investigation. The Novotny case unraveled, leading to a settlement that would actually help the affected villages, but destroyed Elena's reputation. Her firm put her on immediate leave. Marek's wife filed for divorce, and his career prospects evaporated when word spread about his role in the case manipulation. Elena came home one evening in mid-January to find me and Teresa packing. The apartment was cold. I'd turned down the heat. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp with the authority of someone accustomed to controlling every situation. "We're leaving," I said calmly. "The lease is in my name. You'll need to find somewhere else to stay." "You can't take Teresa." "Actually, I can. The court agreed this morning. Temporary custody pending the investigation." "Investigation? What investigation?" I watched understanding dawn in her eyes, watched the lawyer in her start calculating, building her defense. "You did this," she breathed. "You destroyed everything." "No, Alina. You did that. I just stopped letting you make me think I was crazy for noticing." Teresa stood beside me, no longer afraid of her mother's anger. "You told me I was imagining things," she said quietly. "You made me feel like something was wrong with me." "Teresa, Lasco." "Don't," our daughter said. "Don't call me that now." The climax came in February, in a courtroom where Alina faced the Bar Association's disciplinary committee. I sat in the back row, watching her try to defend herself with the same rhetorical weapons she'd once wielded so effectively. But this time, the evidence was overwhelming. This time, she was the one whose credibility collapsed under the weight of her own contradictions. They disbarred her, temporarily, with possibility of reinstatement after 3 years. But the damage to her reputation was permanent. The brilliant lawyer who'd built her career on integrity had been revealed as someone willing to bury evidence that children had been poisoned. Marek lost his position too. His marriage ended. The last I heard, he'd left Prague entirely. As for Alina and me, our divorce was finalized in April. She got the summer house her parents had given us and half the savings. I got our daughter, our apartment, and something more valuable: validation. Every professional who'd examined the evidence had confirmed what I'd known. She had systematically manipulated me, gaslit me, made me doubt my own perceptions and memories. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was just married to someone who'd learned to weaponize empathy and use it as a shield for her deceptions. On a warm May evening, Teresa and I walked along the Vltava River, watching the sun set behind Prague Castle. The city had shed its winter gray and bloomed into spring. "Do you feel better?" she asked, "now that it's over?" I considered the question. Did I feel better? Alina had lost her career, her marriage, her daughter's trust. I'd proven I wasn't the weak, jealous, unstable man she'd tried to convince me I was. The villages would get compensation. Justice of a sort had been served. "I feel different," I finally said. "Not better, just different." "Do you think she'll try to fix things with me?" "Maybe, someday. I don't know if I can forgive her for making me doubt myself." I pulled my daughter close, feeling the weight of what we'd both lost and survived. "You don't have to decide that now. Maybe not ever. But Teresa, remember this. The cruelest thing someone can do isn't betray you. It's make you think you're crazy for noticing the betrayal." She nodded against my shoulder, and we stood there as the lights began to flicker on across the old city. Each window a story, each story a mixture of truth and deception, love and revenge, endings and whatever comes after. The note was still in my desk drawer at home, that folded piece of paper that had started everything. Sometimes I took it out and read it, reminding myself that I hadn't been wrong, hadn't been paranoid, hadn't been the problem. Other times, I considered burning it, releasing myself from the need to hold evidence of her betrayal. But I kept it. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that when someone insists everything is fine, while the foundations crumble beneath you, sometimes the only way forward is to stop believing their version of reality and trust your own eyes, your own instincts, your own truth, even if the cost of that truth is everything you thought you had.